Hi, hello beautiful people. My name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. And today we are going to be doing my 22 most anticipated books coming out in the year 2022. I feel like there's a lot of really great books coming out this year. I remember last year I had thought about doing an anticipated list, and since my video ideas just weren't working out, I just kind of gave up on it because I only had like 5 that I was really looking forward to. But this year I have so many. I actually have a spreadsheet on my Google Drive that has a list of all the books that I've kind of got my eye on for the year 2022 as far as new releases go. I won't talk about all 70 plus that are on those, but I am going to put up a graphic here. You can see the covers for all of those. I put it in a cute little rainbow form for you, but there's definitely some romance, thrillers. There's even a couple of horrors tossed on there, and there's definitely a little less fantasy than previously, simply because a lot of the fantasy that I'm anticipating reading are more backlist titles, especially because I don't really know of a lot of new fantasy that's coming out with like a first book in the series. I still need to catch up on a lot of series that I want to get started on that are having new releases come out in 2022. As I said, I have 22 new releases that I am very excited for. I'm going to talk about them in the order of when they release, and I'll put their release date on the screen as well, along with the cover so that you can see it. Obviously, I don't have any of these books physically because they haven't come out yet. Since I am filming this 8 days into January, a couple of these may already be out, but not many. This is going to go up like a week from tomorrow, so there could definitely be more released by the time you actually see this video, but these are the ones that I am especially anticipating, and they will not fall into my restrictions. I could buy them as long as they fall in my book buying budget. Let's go ahead and get started. The first one is a romance, and it is a young adult romance, I'm pretty sure. It's by Emma Lord, and it's called When You Get the Chance, and this very much gives me the vibes of like one of my favorite movies, which is definitely Maybe, starring Ryan Reynolds and Abigail Breslin, where he is telling her the story of 3 different women that he dated and had a really big impact on his life, and she has to like guess which one is her mom. And so in a way it also kind of gives like Mamma Mia vibes, because it's about a young girl who has big Broadway dreams, but her father is very strict and he doesn't want her to live that life. And I believe the story just kind of starts off with her living her life, trying to convince her dad that this is something that she wants to do, also dealing with her drama club rival at school. But something happens and she decides that she wants to find her mom, and there are 3 women who are the options, and I'm just going to read you a little bit of the blurb and what it says here about these 3 women. It says there's Steph, a still aspiring stage actress and receptionist at a talent agency. There's Farah, ethereal dancer teacher who clearly doesn't have the 2 left feet Millie has, and Beth, the chipper and sweet stage enthusiast with an equally exuberant 15-year-old daughter. It sounds very cute and heartwarming, and also like it might be a little heartbreaking as well, with that family aspect and looking for your family member that you've never known. This is one I was just really excited about as soon as I heard the synopsis. The next one I have is by an author that I actually had been really anticipating their new book last year, and I thought it was actually a debut at the time, but come to find out that she has written books previously. But I own the book that she wrote that I was excited about last year, but I have not yet read it. It's Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And this one also reminds me of a Netflix movie that I saw where 2 people were trying to get their bosses to date and then ended up falling in love with themselves. This one follows 2 people who are in like the news entertainment industry, and their bosses are exes and hate each other, I think now, and they're trying to get them back together. But I'm going to assume that the 2 main characters who are trying to do this are probably going to fall in love with themselves, and this just sounds really cute. The premises of Rachel Lynn Solomon's books just sound so interesting, so I would definitely love to read this one and the X Talk and see how I like her writing and see if I can continue to anticipate her books in the future, because the premises really get me. But I have heard some kind of middle of the road reviews for the X Talk, even though that was one I was really excited about last year, based on the premise of 2 people pretending to be exes, which was kind of a twist on the fake dating trope. So I'm very excited about Weather Girl. The cover is super cute. It's what drew me to the book in the first place. I requested a NetGalley archive it. I was declined, of course, but the cover was what caught my eye, and then I realized it was by the same author of the X Talk, so I knew that I wanted to read it. The next one is yet another romance with a cover that really drew me in, but it is by an author duo that I believe are an actual couple, and they write a lot of books together that kind of are inspired by their own love story, I believe. But this follows two writers who previously used to work together, and something happened 3 years prior that they ended on bad terms and they no longer write together, but now they're being forced to reunite and write another story together, and it's a romantic story, so they're having to work through whatever troubles they had in the past. I'm assuming this is going to be kind of reminiscent of People We Meet on Vacation, in that we don't know what happened between them all those years ago, and we're going to kind of get pieces of the puzzle as the story goes, and we see them maybe fall back in love. I'm assuming this is maybe kind of a second chance love story, but also like friends, former friends to lovers kind of story as well, and I'm very excited about it. I've heard really good things about this particular author duo, and the early ratings so far have been really good for this one, so I'm looking forward to picking it up. The next one is one that I really wish that the alternative cover was available when I film this and edit this, but I don't think it is because it's still a few days into January that it's actually going to be available. But it is an indie romance that I read the first book in the companion novel series in late November, and it was okay, but I really think I'm going to love the second one and this one possibly too, based on the previews that the author has been giving on TikTok. But it is Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, and the reason that this cover just makes me so uneasy is because he's just like staring at you so intensely. Like, I can't look at it for too long, or it just makes me uncomfortable. But it is a beautiful cover, however, but I'm very interested to see the alternative cover, because the covers for the other two books have been very subtle, and I think they call them like discreet covers over on TikTok. But this is an enemies to lovers, friends, brother romance, and it follows Josh, who is the brother of the heroine from the first novel, and her best friend Jules, and they absolutely despise each other, but somehow they're going to hook up and probably fall in love. And like I said, the previews or like little snippets that Anna Huang has been posting on TikTok have me really intrigued by this, so I'm definitely going to pick this one up probably as soon as it's released. And next one is one that I know tons of people are going to be waiting for, and it is Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. Have I read Amari and the Night Brothers? No, I haven't, but I do plan on picking it up this year pretty soon before this comes out so that I can read both of them, and I just really think I'm going to love it. I haven't heard a negative review of this story. I've heard that it's so great for a middle grade. It touches on some really great topics in a great way, and that it's really fun and whimsical, and Amari is just wonderful, and I'm going to fall in love with her. So I can't wait to read Amari and the Night Brothers and pick up Amari and the Great Game and see what I think of them. The next one is a sequel that I was so excited to see that it was coming out, because I read the first book in the series last year and absolutely loved it, and it is Homicide and Halo by Mia P. Manansala. I read the first book in the series last year, Arsenic and Adobo, and I'm very intrigued to see how they turn this into a series, because the first book was great as a standalone, so you definitely don't have to pick up the series. It ended that everything was resolved at the end. I mean, there were a few pieces as far as like romantic elements or friendship elements that could probably be expanded upon and touched on in this sequel. Overall, I think the first book was a great standalone if you wanted to pick that up, but it is a cozy mystery series, and it was just so much fun, just, you know, silly and a simple mystery if you enjoy things like that. It has a lot of fun family elements because it follows a Filipino family and their struggles with owning a cafe. And in the first book, the daughter has first come back to town. Her ex-boyfriend is a huge food critic in the town, and he is giving her family tons of problems at the restaurant. And one day he comes and he literally drops dead at the table, and the first suspect is her and her family. And so she kind of gets thrown into this mystery where she's kind of having to figure out for herself who actually did this and why she's being framed for it. And like I said, it was just kind of a silly, over-the-top mystery, because obviously someone isn't going to be inserting themselves into an investigation of themselves to try to figure this out. But like I said, it was just a lot of fun. There were even some recipes for some of the Filipino foods talked about at the very end, and there's tons of food references throughout because the main character is a baker and obviously her family loves to cook, and it was just a lot of fun, and I can't wait to pick this one up. I don't really know what mystery it's going to follow as far as that goes, but I'm sure that we're going to get more of the main character's family and a little bit of romance added in there as well. The next one is yet another sequel to a series that I have not read the first book in, but it is on my January TBR, so this one comes out in February and I will be picking it up immediately. And it is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. So I have not read the synopsis of Crescent City because I've heard that it is very spoilery. Not to mention, I think it's like super long, so it's very obvious that it probably includes some elements that I don't want to know going in. And I feel like it's one of those that you want to go in not knowing as much, so it has the greatest emotional impact that it can offer you. That is my plan, to go into it blind. I've seen people bawl their eyes out while reading this book. It is a chunky one, so I'm very intrigued to see how chunky this second book is. I really enjoy Sarah J. Maas's writing, so I'm excited to get caught up in this series and continue on with it as new books are released. The next one is a thriller that kind of caught my attention because of the cover and the title. It is The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, and this follows a couple who seems like the perfect couple on the outside, so it's more of a domestic thriller, which I absolutely love. And then the wife cheats and they are referred to this really renowned therapist who actually lost her license, maybe because of some of her practices in the past, and something happens and there are all these like secrets and lies and crazy things start happening. The synopsis is kind of vague about what journey exactly these people are going to go on, but something about this book just really calls to me. And like I said, I love a domestic thriller, and I'm really wanting to focus in the new year on reading the thrillers that I'm most excited about, because I did not get to read as many as I wanted to last year, and it's one of my favorite genres. The next one is actually the very first one that I added on my list. I was reviewing different lists of books coming out, and this one was the first one to catch my attention, and it is called A Novel Obsession, and it's by Caitlin Barash, and this follows a bookseller in New York City, I believe, and she meets this guy and quickly becomes enamored with him, and then she finds out about an ex-girlfriend that he has, and she thinks that this ex-girlfriend lives overseas for some reason, but then she finds out she's actually in New York City, and she becomes obsessed with this woman, starts Instagram stalking her, and somehow befriends her, and it just turns into this crazy web of lies and betrayal, from what I understand from the synopsis. And I don't know why this book calls to me. It's labeled as literary fiction on Goodreads, but it definitely sounds like it has some thriller mystery aspects with the main character becoming so obsessed with this woman, and something about that just really intrigues me. It sounds like it's going to be something that's a little unsettling, and I really can't wait to get to this one. One of the fantasy books that I am very excited about is The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this is obviously the fourth book in the From Blood and Ash series, which I'm currently reading. I'm almost done with The Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I'm going to immediately picking up The Crown of Gilded Bones, so I'll be ready to read this one as soon as it comes out in March, and I'm very excited. I have no idea what the title entails. I mean, I do have like a little bit of an idea, but I'm definitely not trying to get spoiled. JLA has actually been posting like snippets from the book on her Instagram, and I read one, but I had absolutely no idea what it meant, so I'm glad I didn't get spoiled. But from now on, I'm like avoiding all posts from her. As soon as I see her name, I just keep scrolling because I don't want to be spoiled for anything that's going to happen leading up to this book. This is definitely a series that I kind of have a love and hate relationship, because the beginnings of the books do tend to move a little slower. We tend to be in one place for a long time, and there are lots of world building and questions that Poppy has that have to be answered before we get to any actual action. And then the ends of the books are super fast paced and leave you wanting more with the biggest cliffhangers. So I'm very intrigued to see how A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire ends, and I've heard the very end of The Crown of Gilded Bones is super wild and like 5 stars. So I'm very excited to see what the War of Two Queens holds, because I know everyone is very excited about it as well if they love this series. I actually have a NetGalley arc of one of my most anticipated books, which I was very excited to see this one because I've actually read another book from this author last year and I really enjoyed it. And this one is The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. It sounds very interesting, and I think it's going to be related in the first book in that it mentions our main character gets roped into helping her wedding planner cousin on a couple's big day. And in the book I read previously by this author called The Worst Best Man, the main character is a wedding planner. But this book follows the girl who gets roped into helping her wedding planner cousin, and she finds out that this couple should not be married. And so she crashes the wedding and convinces the groom to basically leave his fiance at the altar, I guess, which sounds wild. But then apparently the groom and this woman are going to end up falling in love. So I'm definitely intrigued to see how that's going to play out, but this just sounds fun. I had a lot of fun with The Worst Best Man, and I think this one will be a great read as well. And I'm definitely trying to read more romance next year. As you can see from this list, I have a lot on here, but I'm very excited to have a NetGalley arc of this, so I'll be getting to it before its release date, and you can be sure to hear my thoughts on that before then. The next one is one of my more recent adds to the list, and it is The Queen of Tiles by Hannah Alcaf. And this follows a girl who competes in Scrabble tournaments. Like, that is right up my alley. I absolutely love the game of Scrabble, and I had no idea that there were actually like competitive tournaments for that. I don't know if there is, because obviously this is a book, but maybe there is. That just sounds so fun. But there seems to be a mystery aspect in that her best friend died a year previously and she starts getting clues. So it'll be interesting to see how this like ties in with the Scrabble element. This just sounds a lot of fun, and I think the cover looks really cool, so I had to add it. So this next one is one of the horror picks that I have, and it is The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. And this just sounds super creepy because it involves kids. So there appears to be two timelines. In the late 70s, we follow a woman who has gotten home from her stay at a treatment center, and she's caring for her grandchildren, and then she comes home and she brings this child with her who just doesn't seem exactly right. And this kid starts talking about monsters and gets these other two kids, the grandchildren, roped into like hunting these monsters. And that just kind of sounds super creepy. And then there is a more present timeline in 2019 following a podcast host, which is an element that I absolutely love. And she has been notified of this girl that has gone missing, and there's supposedly a monster sighting in this town, and she knows that monsters are real. So she goes back to the town to track it down. So I'm very interested to see if monster is like an actual monster or like a metaphorical human monster. But this just sounded super creepy with the children and everything. Creepy kids definitely get me. So I put this on the list. I've heard really good things about Jennifer McMahon's work as well. My most anticipated book of the year is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I still haven't read Beach Read, but People We Meet on Vacation just had such an impact on me. I loved it so much last year. I knew that I needed to have Book Lovers on this list. I've already pre-ordered it. It's the only book I think I've pre-ordered as far as anticipated releases go. So this seems to be I've always been annoyed with you to lovers romance. It follows a literary agent who travels to this small quaint town for a summer, and she keeps bumping into this author that she cannot stand from the city that she knows and she's met several times. I think that they just kind of keep bumping into each other and eventually they fall in love. The synopsis is a little more vague than previous synopsises from Emily Henry's books, but I know I'm going to love it. Her writing is just so beautiful. She's definitely one of my favorite authors now, and auto-buy obviously for me, so I cannot wait until this one comes out. The next three are actually novellas, so I'm putting them all as one because they're by the same author, but it is Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero, all by Ali Hazelwood, who is the author of The Love Hypothesis, which is a romance that I absolutely loved in 2021, and I'm very excited about these. They're calling them STEMinist novellas, so they all follow three girls who are best friends who work in STEM, and I think each novella has kind of a enemies to lovers aspect. Some of them has like roommates, some of them is like academic rivals, I think, but they just sound like a lot of fun. They're actually coming out first on audiobook, but I think I'm going to wait until the ebooks are available, and they each come out in different months, so I'll be sure to put out the different release dates under each book for you to see. But I'm very, very excited about these. I'm interested to see how Ali Hazelwood writes a novella, because I feel like The Love Hypothesis was actually a pretty thick book for a romance, so excited to see what she does with this. And then Christina Lauren have a second chance romance coming out called Something Wilder, which follows a woman whose dad was a treasure hunter, and so now she uses his old hand-drawn maps to take people on fake treasure hunts to make her own money. And then one of her exes actually comes out with a group to do one of these treasure hunts, and I think some crazy things ensue, and they just kind of get thrown together and possibly get a second chance at their love. I read a couple of Christina Lauren's books last year and really enjoyed them. They are a very well-known author duo, and I'm very excited to see what this one holds. I haven't read a whole lot of second chance romances, but I think it could be something that I really enjoy, so I'm looking forward to this one as well. And then next I have another mystery thriller that has a very vague synopsis, but it is The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile, and this just says that a group of people are in the library, they hear a woman scream, the security guards take action, tell everybody to lock down, they won't be let out until they figure out what's happened, and somebody in there is actually a murderer. So it sounds very like Clue-esque, and that makes me very excited. Plus it's going to take place in a library. It just sounds like a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get to this one. Probably my second most anticipated book of the year is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Riley Sager is my very favorite thriller author. I've read all of his books finally, and this one I'm so excited about. I actually read a little preview of it, which I will be sure to link below in the description if you want to check it out. And the first few chapters alone had me floored, and so excited to pick this one up when it comes out. This is definitely one that I'm going to have to auto buy. It follows a woman who, I believe she is actually famous, and she wants to get some time out of the spotlight. She's maybe getting some bad press, and so she goes on this vacation to a lake house, and she kind of becomes obsessed with the people who live across the lake and kind of starts watching them. And then the wife goes missing, and she starts trying to figure out what exactly happened to her. And just the preview alone that he put out was, like I said, wild, and I am very, very excited to see what he does with this, and I'm definitely intrigued to see where it will fall in the ranks of the other books that I've loved by him. The next one is one by Megan Miranda, and it is The Last to Vanish. This follows a woman who works at an inn in a small town, and this small town has had some disappearances that have been haunting it for a while. A journalist comes to town to investigate these, and then he himself goes missing. His brother comes to town to investigate, to figure out what happened to him, and somehow the woman who manages the inn gets involved, and she starts figuring out wild secrets about her coworkers and the other people who live in this town that she's grown to love so much. I really, really enjoy Megan Miranda's thrillers. Some of them have been a little more middle of the road. I actually read All the Missing Girls by her, and that was a thriller I just absolutely loved because of the way the format was done, and it was actually one of the first thrillers I read that really got me into the genre. So I am very excited about this one. This one definitely sounds like a typical small town people have gone missing thriller, and I'm very, very intrigued by it, and I'm hoping that it will fall into one of my favorites by her. Next, I have Stay Awake by Megan Golden. This is the author of The Night Swim, which I read last year and really, really loved. I'm excited to see this because it definitely seems like it's going to be a bit different, hopefully in pacing, than The Night Swim based on what the synopsis says it's going to offer. But we're following a woman who wakes up in a taxi. She has no recollection of how she got there. She realizes she can't remember anything from the last few years, and on her body is written the words "stay awake" so many times. And now she's suddenly running from the law because she feels that she has possibly committed a crime that she cannot remember actually committing. So this one sounds wild, and like I said, very, very different from The Night Swim, which was very much a courtroom podcast type thriller that was much slower, but I really, really loved. So I'm definitely interested to see if she can handle the pacing in this story. And I don't know, that concept sounds so wild, someone not really remembering what happened to them and getting woken up into this crazy situation. I will say I'm a little apprehensive because I know Megan Golden's previous books haven't been as well received, but I'm not as critical when it comes to thrillers, so we'll see what I think. The next one is from Alice Feeney, and it is called Daisy Darker, and this is about a family who reunites after several years of not spending time together. They're secluded on an island for like 8 hours, and it doesn't really give much from the synopsis, but it does say that once everything is over, someone will be a murderer. So it definitely kind of is giving me like the Guest List vibes, where it's a group of people on an island and somebody gets killed and we have to figure out who did it. So once again, something that's a little reminiscent of Clue, and I just love that concept. A simple murder mystery, who done it, here's your suspects, piece together the clues. I really loved that story, and I know a lot of people have really been enjoying Alice Feeney's work as of late, as in she probably gets better the more she writes, so I'm definitely intrigued to pick up one of her newer releases. And finally, the book that is the furthest out, but I know will be coming out in 2022, that I'm very excited about. It is a sequel, so I can't talk much about the synopsis of it, but it is Blood Marked by Tracy Deonn. Legendborn is the first book, and it was the first book that I read in the year 2021, and I absolutely loved it. The end was quite the journey. I will say that the beginning was a little bit of a slog. I struggled with a lot of the terminology following the King Arthurian legend, but overall, this story just, I really loved it, and I think this book has the potential to be so much better, especially now that we've got that world building kind of down pat. But before I get ahead of myself, let me tell you a little bit about Legendborn. This follows Bree, whose mother has passed away. To help herself grieve and get away from the house that reminds her so much of her mother, she gets accepted into this early college program, and she goes and gets thrust into this crazy world of magic where these people appear to be Arthurian descendants, and she finds out somehow she falls into this world, and her mother also might have been involved in this world, and maybe her mother's death actually wasn't an accident, and there's just so much going on here. It also tackles the topic of racism and being Black in a predominantly white space, and I think that all of that was handled really beautifully in the first book, and I can't wait to see what gets done in the second book, and now that we know what we know about Bree's past. And it's interesting that Cell is on the cover of this book. There's definitely a love triangle in this, and it's one of my favorite kinds, in that I wouldn't care which one she really ends up with. I do have like a preference to which one I want her to be with, but if she ended up with the other one, I wouldn't be mad or anything. As I was reading the synopsis for this one, there's definitely an aspect I don't remember happening in the other book, so I think I need to reread it before this one comes out. I'm so excited about this. I cannot wait to see what Bree does with everything she learned in the first book. Well, there you have it. Those are the 22 books that I am most anticipating for the year 2022, and I just think that 2022 is going to be a great year. I'm feeling so confident in so many aspects, but especially in my reading quality this year. I've heard this said on a lot of people's goals videos, but we're aiming for quality over quantity this year. So as long as majority of the books I've really loved and could recommend to you guys, then it's been a great reading year. So that is what I'm looking forward to. Books that I'm excited about and know that I'm going to love and have all the aspects that really call to me. And that is what this list makes up. Even the larger list, which I will have a link to my Goodreads list for 2022 releases that were in that graphic at the beginning of the video, linked below if you're interested in that. I'm very excited for all of those as well, but I definitely needed to narrow it down and not talk about 70 plus books in a video. These are the 22 that I will definitely be prioritizing, and I can't wait to read them. As always, make sure you check the description where my socials and different resources are linked, and thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!
I was down until you saved me, until you set me free. My eyes were closed, now I see clear as day, and I just wanted to say that you can take me high.